Tonight on Newshour, China prepares to stage the largest Shanghai Cooperation Organisation summit in its history. From August the 31st to September the 1st in Tianjin, President Xi Jinping will host more than 20 world leaders in Beijing. Well, among the most prominent attendees, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, their presence underscores both the symbolism and the strategic weight of this gathering. For Modi, it marks his first visit to China in 7 years, a cautious re-engagement following border clashes back in 2020. For Putin, well, it provides another chance to strengthen trilateral talks with China and India, reinforcing Moscow's alignment with Beijing at a time of heightened geopolitical competition. With United Nations Secretary-General António Guterres in attendance, the SCO is seeking to project itself as much more than a regional forum. The question is whether the ambitions and the optics translate into genuine influence. Let's head to our correspondent in Hong Kong for the very latest on preparations and discussions that will be taking place there.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi are among around 20 leaders expected to visit China for this year's Shanghai Cooperation Organisation summit. Now, Assistant Foreign Minister Liu Bin told reporters last week that the gathering hosted by Chinese President Xi Jinping was a break with the ethos of a certain country that seeks to put its national interest above the interest of others, in what many saw as a reference to the United States. The US was never invited to be a part of the group. It's Modi's first visit to China in more than 7 years. The two neighbors are working on further diffusing tensions after deadly border clashes in 2020. With India also facing renewed tariff pressures from the Trump administration, there are expectations for a positive meeting between Xi and Modi on the sidelines. It will also be Russian President Vladimir Putin's first visit to China since he held talks on the Ukraine war with US President Donald Trump in Alaska. Now, analysts say that President Xi will want to use the summit as an opportunity to show what a post-American-led international order might look like. But tensions inside the group remain, not least between India and Pakistan. Many will be watching to see if the group can reach a consensus on a joint statement, despite the member states' conflicting interests. And while there might not be big policy announcements at the summit, experts warn the bloc's appeal to global South countries should not be underestimated. And the optics of these leaders standing side by side is a powerful one. Laura Westbrook for A News in Hong Kong.
Okay, ahead of the SCO summit, the organisation's Secretary-General has outlined new priorities. In an exclusive interview, he spoke about the bloc's expansion into emerging sectors such as artificial intelligence and poverty reduction, as well as fresh momentum behind a proposed SCO development bank. Here's what he had to say.
SCO is a multifunctional organization which develops cooperation in actually all the fields which are possible, including healthcare, education, trade, economic, investment, transportation, etc. Now, SCO member countries are discussing and practically implementing cooperation in such new fields as poverty alleviation, artificial intelligence, and supporting startup and innovations. And it is important that adapting to requirements and demands of the present day, there are new spheres of cooperation being appeared almost every year. We are very glad that this year, under China chairmanship in the SCO, experts of the ministries and banks concerned have intensified their negotiations on this issue. As a Secretariat, we are sure that such an institution would have and will have added value. There is a lot of niche in the sphere of financing and implementing different projects on the SCO territory. We see a possible niche for such an institution to start with not very huge projects, but to be concentrated or be focused first on some middle and small business activities to support small and medium enterprises of our SCO member countries first, and then it will see what projects will be really in demand, and all these activities may be expanded in future. The main event of the year, meeting of the heads of state of the SCO, will take place in China in the beginning of autumn this year in the city of Tianjin. This year is a year of sustainable development. It is a theme of the year proposed by Chinese chairmanship, and sustainable development will be paid much attention, including ecology, climate change, social economic development, which in turn includes green energy, transportation, connectivity, facilitating of trade and investment, and digital economy.
Now, joining us from Beijing to unpack the significance of this summit is the CGTN host and political commentator Qindu Zhu. Qindu, thank you very much for joining us from Beijing. What does hosting the largest ever SCO summit reveal to us then about China's ambitions?
Thank you for having me. SCO used to be seen as something like a camp that is often compared to NATO, Western military organization. This is a different one. Obviously, it's not right, not correct. We know that SCO used to focus on security, meaning that the fight against the separatism, terrorism, sexual extremism, because all those countries, former Soviet republics, Central Asian nations, China, etc., they all suffer from that kind of insecurity. So there's a need for them to cooperate. But now, I think it's a new stage of development. They are focusing, not shift the focus, but they are also focusing on, I would say, on development, economic cooperation, in which what we are going to see is really the focus on, say, digital cooperation, digitalization for industries, renewable energies, solar panels, EVs, and also probably establishment of a development bank in Tianjin, and kind of a similar financial initiatives, for example, the use of local currency for trade transactions. That is a response, of course, to the U.S. abuse of the U.S. dollar and tariffs on basically the rest of the world.
And now we could see in our pictures there Mr. Modi, and that is a relationship that has captured a lot of attention recently. His significant return to China after 7 years away. What level of significance do you attach to this return to China?
Well, its significance in the sense of a bilateral relationship. It is also significant, I would say, to the SCO group, to the BRICS group, because both China and India are important members of both of the groups. So bilaterally, of course, have their own problem. The problem has been there for decades. So, one way a stable relationship is that, yes, you have a problem, but keep the problem from, or prevent the problem from getting worse is the way to solve the problem. So it's really the border issue. The relationship after the meeting between the two leaders in the Russian city a couple of years ago. So the relationship has been recovering in 2020. And of course, recently, there's a terrible pressure on India. There's sort of impetus, more impetus to improve ties with China. But I would say the Indian side has made it very clear, their relationship with China has nothing to do with the U.S. I think that's their position, in partly because they don't want to seem as a tool used by Washington against China. So it's kind of complicated, but I think both sides understand a stable relationship will be beneficial for Beijing, will be beneficial for New Delhi. So that's why they are recovering, they are improving their bilateral ties, including border issue discussion and also the progress in terms of economic cooperation. For example, visa issues from India to Chinese tourists, and also the Chinese side, I think, is lifting some of the sanctions in terms of export to the Indian side.
Well, from one interesting bilateral relationship to a potentially even more interesting trilateral one, China and India, of course, will be meeting and talking with Russia at the event. Russia, a country under a lot of pressure from many parts of the international community at the moment. What do you expect that trilateral meeting to consist of, and do you expect any announcements to come out of it?
Well, recently what we are seeing is, the Russian side encouraging the India to join China and Russia to recover the trilateral kind of system, mechanism, I would say, between Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi. They used to have this meeting between the three countries and also their leaders to meet on a yearly basis. This is kind of like a special arrangement among the three members. Obviously, they are key members to SCO. They are also key members to BRICS grouping. So this represents obviously the new development of this appearance of a multipolar system away from this brave unipolar system under, let's say, international governance from Washington mostly, and now the multipolar system with the rise of emerging economies, Russia, China, India, especially the three countries, I would say, of course, along with other countries, Brazil, South Africa, etc. They are playing a more and more important role to voice their opinions, to have their voice heard, to defend their benefits, to defend their interests, and also the interests of the developing countries. In that sense, we might see, let's say, a closer, consultation or India's primary agreement, if that's the case, to the recovery of this trilateral mechanism between Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi. That would be a huge progress, I would say. But we are, we used to see a couple of weeks ago, I would say, there's reluctance from the Indian side because Indian complained about their relationship with China, etc., and also the concern with their relationship with Washington. Washington would say, well, you are siding with Moscow. We are imposing tariff of 50% on New Delhi, and now you are getting closer to Moscow. Whether there could be a card to be played by New Delhi, we're not sure yet. It's really about Washington, whether Washington say, is there any flexibility in mending ties with New Delhi, or they are pushing New Delhi further away from Washington. That's to a certain extent, it's really up to Washington.
It's very interesting. And just going back to China and Russia, China has called for more cooperation with Russia when it comes to safeguarding security and development, working together. What are they really speaking about here? Is this predominantly about economic ties, or is it also about defense as well?
It's mostly economic ties. Economic ties, I would say, that themselves is that's an issue for Washington. That's why Washington is occasionally also pointing finger at China. And when they try to solve this Ukraine issue, for example, they need the help from New Delhi, from Beijing. In their way, they would say, join us, impose sanctions on Moscow, so that Moscow is defeated, so Moscow will withdraw from Ukraine. But look, I would say relationship between Moscow and Beijing, between New Delhi and Moscow, is kind of similar. India, China, they are independent countries with independent defense. They are not relying on any other countries. So they want to have their sovereignty in terms of their, foreign affairs, in terms of the relationship with other countries, including Moscow, including Washington. They don't want to say, our relationship with other countries to be dictated by Washington. This is not the case. With that said, I would also clarify, I don't think, the Beijing's relationship with Moscow is about Washington, is against Washington. Or New Delhi's relationship with Moscow is against Ukraine or is against Washington. It's really about their national interests. At the same time, of course, you can say the outcome of this kind of development indeed is a factor, a major factor to the rise of a multipolar system, because they are important players. The choice of they made, or the relationship they want to strengthen, they want to have, they do have a kind of a consequence in terms of global ties and the international community. Some that's not really welcomed by Washington, but again, that's the interest of Beijing, the interest of New Delhi.
And some other important players who are going to be there, of course, António Guterres, the Iranian president. What does that say about the global positioning, the broadening of the SCO's remit?
Good question here. I think, you can ask the question basically, why is SCO attractive to so many countries? My understanding is this year probably we're going to see a further expansion of this group. Right now it has 10 members. Maybe it will have many more members. It has 2 observer countries. It has 14 dialogue partners. Who knows? 6 of the dialogue partners are from the Arab world, Arab countries, 5 or 6 of them. From there, you can say there's a strong interest to be part of SCO, which is basically a non-Western organization, which is an organization of the global South, based on the Central Asian region. I would say, why is it attractive? Because of, you can say, in the Shanghai spirit, which is stressed very much about building a relationship based on equality, based on mutual respect, mutual non-interference of internal affairs of another member. Of course, some of the members do have their problems, like Beijing and New Delhi and Pakistan. But again, having to be present at this year's gathering says a lot about SCO can, first of all, help solve the problems among its members. In that sense, it's very positive. And for countries like Iran, to be part of SCO, first of all, this is a very important international platform for them to voice their concerns, to present their case. Secondly, if you take a look at the focus of this year in particular, economic cooperation, I think a lot of people, a lot of member countries recognize that, yes, there's a security issue, but if you don't have a strong economy, you tend to be intimidated, you tend to be blackmailed by tariffs, by other countries with tariffs. What you can do to develop yourself, to grow your economy, to be part of this very important organization, which, coincidentally, focusing on international economic cooperation among its members.
And you mentioned the global South there, Qindu. Do you think that's where the SCO is going? It's evolving into a kind of de facto platform for global South leadership, going far beyond its original security mandate?
It's interesting, a case here, of course, primarily it was focusing on the Central Asian region, China, Russia, plus Kazakhstan and other countries in the region, and then it's expanded to include Pakistan, India, Iran, Belarus, and you also have this. You are seeing also strong interest from Southeast Asian countries, ASEAN countries, from the Arab world. So in that sense, yes, I think to a certain extent, yes, they are representing the interests of global South. For them, the number one priority is development. Is really the economic growth. Along with that, I would say that's really about to catch on the bus of this high tech development. That is AI. That is digital development. I think in that regard, China is in a leading position by cooperating with SCO members, in particular with China. I think that's a big push, a big positive development for those countries. For example, renewable energy. China is second to none. EV, China is number one in terms of production, in terms of export, and also solar panels, exports, installation. China is number one. So if you want to let's say, have energy construction, new energy construction, renewable development. Of course, there's a pragmatical need to cooperate with China, and also in terms of digitalization of industries or AI development. China's AI system is based on open source. So it's easy to work together with China. So in that sense, I would say we are seeing positive momentum for SCO integration, for SCO development, and that's also part of the reason why it is attractive to many other developing countries.
Now, Quindu, those of us like you and I in the media, we enjoy the beautiful pictures that we've seen, to some degree the political theatre that's been on display between the individual leaders and their relationships. But do you think there's a danger that the optics might, in some sense, be overshadowing any concrete policy outcomes at the meeting?
Well, I wouldn't say so, because as far as I know, we are going to see a joint declaration out of this SCO summit, despite the differences, a brief military conflict between Pakistan and India. We are going to see a joint declaration, and also probably around or more than 20 deals to be made by SCO, and with a particular focus not only on the security cooperation, like new offices or new centers for security operation, traditional security concerns, and also like information security or other kinds of security, and also. As I earlier mentioned, very important, I would say, I can't stress enough, that's the economic cooperation. I think all those, at the end of the day, your viewers would realize, pragmatic, huge, giant progress in terms of pragmatic cooperation in security, in economic sphere, and also financially. SCO members are cooperating with each other in a very close manner. That itself is a strong message to the world. That is the new practice of relationship, of international relationship, that is based on respect, that is based on equality, based on, not based on intimidation or bullying other countries, or people bullying more. That is actually a new spirit of kind of a new international relationship could be, and this emergence of multipolar system.
And we've seen plenty of that cooperation and that cooperative spirit looking across Eurasia, the South Caucasus, Central Asia. How do you expect those relationships to develop, for Beijing to extend its reach through the Middle Corridor into parts of Central Asia, South Caucasus, following the events?
Beijing has not expressed a clear desire to play a role in that kind of, in those regions, especially in security issues. But what is clear is that, Beijing's priority, or Beijing's model for international development, or, the plan, let's say, if there's a plan, I would describe that kind of plan as development. On one hand, if countries focus on development and cooperation in that respect, and itself will reduce conflicts, will reduce differences. It's a better way to deal with the differences. Usually, you would say, let's hold off the difference. Let's put aside the difference. Let's focus on what we can do together in a way that is mutually beneficial. And secondly, if you look at the world today, high-tech development, like AI in particular, I think if you not boarding on the bus, you will be left behind, and you don't want to left behind. So you want to strengthen cooperation in that respect, digital trend, the trend of AI. You want to cooperate. You want to work with other countries rather than, let's say, let's fight a war over this piece of land or over this kind of like a security issue. I would say by focusing on development, by prioritizing development, we are going to see more peace, more cooperation, and less insecurity and less conflicts. Probably that characterized the Chinese model in a sense.
Qindu, thank you very much for joining us from Beijing.
Thank you for having me.
The SCO summit in Tianjin is unlikely to resolve deep divisions then, but its symbolism is unmistakable. China is presenting itself as a convener of the global south, deepening ties with Moscow and cautiously reopening channels with India. Whether these optics produce lasting influence remains to be seen. Well, that is all from this edition of Newshour from all of us here at A News. Thanks for being with us.